As quoted from the book Technical Writing for Teams, the Stream Tools Handbook, editing is a process of selecting and preparing written, visual, audible and film media used to convey information. The editing process can involve correction, condensation, organization and many other modifications performed with an intention to produce a correct, consistent, accurate and complete work. Essentially, in a much more simplified term, this means taking shots you've used from your filming and changing it. For example, shortening or adding music to it to create a far more aesthetically pleasing and harmonious experience. The first use of editing was by Edwin S. Porter, who was the first to use multiple shots instead of one and put them together. Even something as simple as cutting to a new shot is considered editing, as it is putting two separate shots together to create an entirely new sort of narrative. This technique is now constantly used in the modern day media and expanded and developed as our understanding of the filmmaking art has expanded. Even as I talk now, I have purposely selected a backing track to make the video seem more professional. Right now I myself will once again use this editing to cut to a border, saying history of editing to segment my scenes better and make it easier for you to follow. As stated before, the first person to really use editing was a man named Edwin S. Porter. At one point in his life he acted as a projectionist. As one, he would sometimes need to create a duplication of Méliès films, which he would do by taking several one-act reels and putting them together in a 15-minute reel. Putting tougher clips from multiple movies would be an essential skill for his later years in filming, after a failed attempt at trying to build his own camera. He later joined Edwin's East 21st Street Skylight Studio, where he directed such films as The Finish of Bridget McKean and Jack and the Beanstalk. His two most important contributions to editing, however, and perhaps even filmography, would be Life of an American Fireman and The Great Train Robbery, as they would prove to change how editing is done forever with their use of tension and drama, which they got with the placement of music and, for the time, groundbreaking effects and constant cuts to different scenes, and not letting the camera stay on for too long, an idea that originated from the documentary style of filming. The next major breakthrough in editing scene would be D.W. Griffith's discovery of camera angles creating moods and emotions. He in fact may have discovered one of the most arguably important things that are used in editing today, the close-up. He was also a firm believer in hour-long films compared to the usual 15-minute films, and is partly the reason why films are longer today. Not only that, but he took Edwin S. Porter's style of cutting and adapted it, letting it show the same scene from a different angle instead of just cutting to a different scene with the same angle. He also reasoned from the time as a writer that movies too should have clear transitions to other scenes, and was the first one to use a fade, making it clear that another scene was taking place. This wasn't only it though. He discovered many of the techniques that major filmmakers use today. Just look at Birth of a Nation and how it uses establishing shots of medium and close-up shots, fading and scrolling. As noted by Charlie Chaplin, when it came to the media, he was the quote-unquote teacher of us all, and easily the predominant figure of the history of editing. There are many different styles of editing, all used for a wide variety of reasons. Here's the list of different types of editing and what they are used for. Montage. Multiple shots that are taken with multiple camera shots, locations and clothing to try and convey a progression and passage of time. Take for instance the Team America montage song that tries to convey that the main character is getting better, using multiple shots of him doing something badly and then in later shots getting better at it. In-camera editing, where instead of being changed on a computer, the shots are taken in a consecutive order that remain unedited. An example of this would be in films from the iPhone Film Editing Festival, as they are not allowed to edit the footage on a computer. Parallel editing, cutting between two scenes that are happening simultaneously with each other. This is usually to show a contrast when things have become out of control and chaotic. An example of this being from the TV show called Hellsing, as multiple shots take place. French New Wave. Movies that diverge from the normal silent Hollywood style of editing and instead focus on new and different ways of using a video camera. In Hollywood editing is the philosophy that the camera and music should not draw attention to themselves and should only add to the scene that was used in the big title movie productions. Primarily in 1927 and 1963. This was because during the time focus was primarily put on psychological struggles of the character. Action movies today use diverse camera shots and epic music pieces to add to the action scene of the piece, but back then it was much more preferable to have a silent music and steady camera work so the audiences could fully focus on the character interactions in front of them. An excellent example of this being most Alfred Hitchcock films, particularly Psycho. Notice here in this scene the camera is still and the music not too complex, meaning that the selling point for this scene and thing getting the most attention is the actors. The City of God uses a lot of diverse methods in its use of cinematography, used to set up a feeling of hyperactivity and claustrophobia, while also focusing on open and free space for the purpose of creating a jarring contrast. For the chaotic and fast-paced scenes they like to use a lot of close-ups and extreme close-ups. Probably set the chaotic feeling of being closed in and not having much moving space, and to set an uneasy feeling of what the gang characters are like, with an in-your-face attitude. However, it also uses long shots. Whenever it is doing this though, it's important to note that the screen is still full of people. You're even able to see the shoulders of some people off-shot for the purpose of showing that even when they are far away, they are still very active in the streets. It should also be mentioned that underhead shots are used a lot for the main gang leader to make him seem powerful and big. All its transitions tend to be quick cuts that only last for a few seconds, with scenes that only last for typically 2 to 3 seconds before ending once again to create a quick static movement. In contrast, however, there are scenes with the two boys that take a lot longer and are much more calmer and relaxing. This sets up an interesting parallel and juxtaposition. It also uses 360 camera work in a nice way to build up a transition, focusing on making the scene disorientating and allow us to feel what the character is feeling as he flashes back between in his imminent danger and younger life, helping us understand and sympathise with the character more. Separate from the usual Hollywood style of camera work, instead of focusing on letting us see what the character is doing, the camera work instead helps us understand how this character is feeling and helps us better sympathise with said character.